Hello, everyone. My name is Martin Collins, and I'm the co-director of Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre. And you're all very welcome to this event. Today marks the 50th anniversary of the first Roma National Congress, which took place in London in 1971. It was a very historic day for the Roma community, in that it was the first time ever there was an effort to create a pan-European platform to give a voice to the Roma and to advocate for Roma basic human rights. It was also at the time the national Roma flag was adopted, which is the wheel, which symbolises movement, and the blue the sky, and the green obviously symbolises the grass. At the time also the Roma national anthem, Jelm Jelm, was adopted, and we will hear that anthem a little bit later on. I have the great pleasure of introducing two very special guests. I have with me my very good friend Eileen Flynn. Eileen is the first traveller to be nominated to the Seanad, so a very proud day indeed for the family, but also a very proud day for the wider traveller community. In that we see a member of our own community in Seanad there. That's quite important. And also Eileen is the chair of the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Issues Affecting Travellers. Eileen also has a very long history of traveller activism, more recently involved with the National Traveller Women's Forum. So I'd like to welcome Eileen. I'm also joined by Romeo Franz, who is a Green Party MEP, and a long-time activist in Roma human rights, and is also a member of the European Parliament Committee on Racism. I will come to my guest in a few moments. So now what I want to do is, for a very short while, maybe 30 seconds, is just take a moment of silence in memory of all of those Roma who perished during the Nazi regime in the Holocaust, but also to pay homage to all of the Roma who have died as a result of racially motivated attacks right across Europe, and indeed also to pay homage to all of the traveller activists who have passed away, who have worked tirelessly in the support of their community. So just take a moment's silence, please. Okay, thanks very much for that. So now what I want to do is we're going to show a very short 2-minute video capturing some really significant and historic moments over the last 50 years in terms of the struggle for justice and for human rights for Roma and travellers. So let's have a look at it. there you have it, a little short video capturing some of the really significant and historic moments in our struggle over many years. And indeed, when I was looking at some of those images, it certainly brought back a lot of memories to me. Just before I go to my two guests, I should say that there is actually of sorts an Irish connection with the first Roma National Congress in 1971. And that connection is actually through a man called Grattan Puxon. Grattan Puxon lived in Ireland in the early 60s, and he actually lived with Irish travellers. And he was the very first person to try and organise a travel resistance. He tried to mobilise and organise travellers to campaign and to advocate for their basic human rights, access to accommodation, an end to evictions, access to education and healthcare. And of course, we all know that Grattan, over many years, has been a staunch supporter and advocate of human rights for both Roma and travellers in Ireland, in England, and indeed right across the country. And we know that Grattan was a participant in the first Roma Congress in 1971. So a really good person. So now I'm going to turn to my two guests, and maybe to begin with, I'll start with Romeo. Romeo, we know that you have been involved for many years in advocating and campaigning for the human rights of the Roma community. But maybe if I could ask you, what activist has inspired you, and are there particular moments in history that also inspired you to get involved in advocating for Roma human rights?
First, brother, I will thank you for the invitation to be with you here together to speak about this, about our really important topic, what we have. And to your question, I only learned about the word gypsy when I started to go to school. This is where I learned what it means to face discrimination and hate. Later, on my first participation in a public protest of the civil rights movement of the German Sinti and Roma, gave me a feeling of self-empowerment that triggered my political activism and led me to where I am now. I'm still shocked about the little knowledge about our minority and about our diversity and our cultural contributions to European societies. This makes it easier for right-wing populists and Nazis to make use of racist stereotypes against us and to justify discrimination and segregation. And my personal history is I lost 6 members of my family in the Holocaust and in Auschwitz. And they was every Sunday we come together. When I can remember, when I was a little child, we come together, my grandma and my uncles, and they speak every Sunday. Sometimes after, when they drink coffee and eat cake, and you don't need much time. Then they spoke about their brothers and sisters, what they lost in the Holocaust. And for me, as a little child, this was for me that I have the feeling that I know them. These 6 people who was murdered in Auschwitz, personality, I know them personally, and I know this all the little stories from them, and so, and they are a part of my life, and that's the reason that I will fight for justice, for equal participation, because we know where can develop racism. We know this. We lost more than 500,000 of our people, and we must fight against this. That this situation never repeat.
We also know, Romeo, that the Roma Holocaust and the genocide of Roma was also denied by many scholars, by many politicians, and by many governments across Europe. And we know that the Roma movement had to fight really, really hard to get recognition of the genocide of Roma. Would you like maybe to say a little bit about that, please?
Yes, of course. I will start with the first International Roma Day. Was in 1971. Was important to starting a point for the whole citizen rights movements to get organized and make our voice heard. And the acknowledgement of the Holocaust of our people by the German government was another important step. For me personally, the opening of the memorial, the Sinti and Roma of Europe murdered under National Socialism, which is in Berlin, right next to the German parliament, was a very emotional moment of high political symbolism. This memorial gives our victims and their descendants a common place for remembrance and of peace for grief. But this memorial is also an important place to commemoration for our society as a whole. It reminds current and future generations of the mass murders of Nazi Germany committed based on a racist ideology. And it teaches us to stay vigilant in the face of dangers of extreme nationalism and of all forms of racism, in this particular case, anti-Gypsyism. And I will go back to the 1980 when the Holocaust from our people was recognized from Helmut Schmidt. He was a Bundeskanzler in Germany. It was a big fight, but the German government was not, I use the word voluntary to do that. You know, before members of our minority makes a strike in the concentration lager in Dachau, and the whole world was seeing this situation that the Sinti and Roma and the Holocaust to our people was not recognized, and that makes a pressure. That makes a pressure to Germany to recognize. So and look, Martin, when you see the studies and when they ask the majority about our people, then you see 50-60% in Germany, they don't like our people as neighbors. We have no access to education, not equal access. So that shows me that the majority, it's very hard for them to learn about the history. It's and that they overcome the anti-Gypsyism. That's because we must see, and it's I think very important. Let us bring the focus in case of anti-Gypsyism to the majority, because they are sick with anti-Gypsyism, not we. You know, we are affected from their sickness.
Yeah.
And that we must see. We cannot, and that's my opinion, we cannot change the situation when we don't work with the majority. We must work with them together to sensitize them, to make them against healthy with their sickness, anti-Gypsyism. You know, that's the point. We cannot. Anti-Gypsyism is not our. We are affected from anti-Gypsyism because the majority has the anti-Gypsyism as sickness, and that's, I think, that there I must we must change the focus to the majority. All they speak in the European Commission about integration and so, and I told them, I cannot hear this word integration. You know why? My family lives since 600 years in Germany. We don't must be integrate. We want equal participation
Yeah.
and equal rights, not integration, because integration is a fake. Integration calls for me and for the many affected groups, minorities, calls to lose your identity, to be a part of a main culture who is not real. We have no main culture in Europe or Germany or United Kingdom or Ireland.
Certainly a lot of what you say, Romeo, certainly resonates with my experience as a traveller in Ireland, and I'm sure Eileen will concur with that. And I think it's really important. There's an old saying that those who forget history are condemned to repeat it, and really important that we don't forget the history, experience, the genocide of the Roma community. And Romeo, I'll come back in a few moments here for some further comments. So now if I can just turn to Eileen Flynn. And Eileen, I'll ask you the same questions. What activists inspired you to get involved in the Traveller struggle, and are there key moments in our struggle, events that also inspired you?
I really admire Hannah McGinley, Davy Joyce, and yourself, Martin, as men being part of the struggle. While it's really hard for Traveller women, I think it's even more tougher for Traveller men to be activists. And then the likes of Maria Joyce, Catherine Joyce, the people that's been doing it long before my time is the people I admire very much. But for me, I didn't wake up and say, like, even as a child, I didn't want to grow up and be an activist, or I didn't want to grow up and be a politician. But my father was very political, Lord of Mercy Panham, and my mother wouldn't have been as political, but I always seemed to talk up to the corporation at the time, or to security men in shops and stuff. And like Romeo, I felt different from a very, very young age, but I never realised why I was different, like my whole family really. And when my mammy died, I would have heard a lot around the house, around like the presidential elections, the elections in general, but Daddy, Lord Mercy Panham, and Daddy one day was talking about Nan Joyce, and how Nan Joyce ran in Tala, and how she got 500 votes and didn't, but still it was not a lot of votes. These were his words, and then educating myself around Nan Joyce and seeing women like Nan Joyce do what she did. Now, I've never met Nan Joyce in my life. However, she did inspire me, from history, and knowing that if she was able to get 500 votes in general elections, that it's doable. And then sadly, it was a really sad event that really pushed me to be the person I am today, and that was the deaths of 10 people within our community in Carrick Mines. And it's something I still can't talk about or get my head even around sometimes. And that's what really motivated me. And then I started getting involved in Travellers being recognised as an ethnic minority group, and even in 2011, 2012, being part of some of the protests with the NGOs for rights for the Traveller community and stuff. So that was all kind of a starting point for me. But again, we sometimes have this expectation within our own community and outside of our own community that we're never going to be anything but travellers, while it's important that we're travellers and that we're from an ethnic minority group. And as Romeo rightly said, it's important that we recognise our own culture and celebrate our own culture and to be valued as equal part of society. So I just pushed through the barriers along with the supports of, I didn't do it by myself, to be clear about it. I always engaged them with along with the national NGOs at some way, shape or form, and I always seek advice and try to bring the Traveller community with me and other marginalised communities. But again, Martin, those equality of opportunity for Traveller people and for Roma people is still not evident in Ireland today. It's always even to college, there's access courses that that seems to be normal for Traveller people and Roma people to take. And then there's even for employment today. And again, if we look at the study, the behaviours and attitude survey that was done that was launched in October 2017, we'll see that 73% of the general population wouldn't like a Traveller person as their neighbour, and them figures are very, very worrying, you know, in today's world. But again, like as you get older, you know, as a woman and as a mother now, 31 years of age, when it's looking back, it's the journey that inspires you more and more. And you know, the more you hear of a Traveller person's house being burnt, or a Roma person's house being burnt due to a hate crime or bad discrimination, hatred, racism, well then that, even though while it's really, really tough, but that motivates you to do more, you know. So but for me it would have been Nan Joyce, especially in politics, you know, that I would have read a lot about and got to know a lot about through my father, Lord Mercy upon him, and then just great activists such as Catherine Joyce, and men and women activists. Now looking back as a 31-year-old woman, that has inspired me, yeah.
Very good, Eileen. I mean, I had the pleasure of actually meeting Nan Joyce. When I first got involved in the struggle in 1985, I met Nan. She was involved with Minker Misley at the time, and certainly she would have been one of the people that would have inspired me. A very strong, very articulate, committed woman to the cause, played a really important part in the movement. I'm actually quite struck when I heard Romeo speak, and then yourself, Eileen, and I'm just, I mean, obviously we are two distinct ethnic groups, you know, but the similarities in terms of the experience of exclusion, persecution, racism are quite striking. It really is. I'll come back in a moment to both of you for concluding comments, but now I just want to move on to a short video of a Traveller woman, Bridget Collins, singing a song, One Starry Night.
One starry night, as I lay sleeping, one stormy night, as I lay in bed, I dreamed I heard wagon wheels are screeching. But when I have woke, my love had fled. I searched the highway like by and highway. I searched that over camping places too. I will inquire all other people. Oh, tales near sight of light of you. For it's many's done, my love, would you I've traveled. Many's the hour, love, of which you I spend. I thought you were my love forever, but now I find, love, you were only lent. But now I find, love, you were only lent.
Okay, so there you have it, Bridget Collins singing One Starry Night. In many respects could be described as the Traveller anthem. So maybe I'll start this time with you, Eileen. And obviously it's 50 years since the first Roma National Congress, and a lot has happened, and there has been some achievements, but unfortunately we also know that there are many remaining challenges left to be addressed. But in terms of the next stages of the movement, of the struggle, Eileen, what do you think needs to happen next?
I think action, Martin, there's an awful lot of great policies out there, an awful lot of great legislation that obviously, you know, activists has done before, or before my time anyway. And it's not about even recreating the wheel. It's about getting some of those policies and legislation into action, and to trying to get the political will there to make life better for Traveller people and for Roma people in Ireland. But most importantly, you know, that Travellers, I think, like that recognition that Enda Kenny gave us on the 1st of March 2017 was only a token gesture because it was pressure from Europe to do that. But now that needs to be legal, and we need to have a good hate crime legislation in Ireland to protect the Traveller community, the Roma community, and other ethnic minority groups. And that's what I'm doing at the minute, is trying to bring about a good hate crime legislation that will work for us all, and that we will no more see Traveller homes being burnt without the person being prosecuted that committed the hate crime because of our identities. And again, Martin, you're right, a lot has been done, like setting up a Traveller accommodation, like being recognised as an ethnic minority group, and a hell of a lot, even much more around the access to education and stuff. But now it's that opportunity to be successful within the education system, to see these legislations working for our community, and especially around a cultural and appropriate accommodation as well. So I think that we still have a good bit to go around, you know, Travellers being safe in Ireland, and having that safe accommodation, and having equal access to services, but also having that equality of opportunity to be able to be successful, if that's getting employment, education, like, you know, that we're able to say that you can be anything if you put your mind to it. But actually, unfortunately, right now you can't be, because we don't have the opportunity to be what we want to be due to living conditions, finance situations, etc. So yeah, it's just a lot of policy needs to be actioned in now. And for one example is this national mental health strategy plan for the Traveller community, and that needs to be acted on, because there's members of our community that sign every single day from suicide, and it's having a big impact on all of our lives.
I certainly would concur with that, Eileen. Certainly there's a need for more effective legal remedies and protection for Travellers, whether that's in relation to hate speech, hate crime, unlawful discrimination in public services. And you're right, I mean, there is a bit of fatigue out there among Travellers that, you know, agreed policy hardly ever gets implemented. And I think a lot of people would concur with you. That's the big challenge, is actually implementing policy which has been negotiated and agreed between Traveller organisations and the state. So I think that's a big challenge for sure. So Romeo, I'll ask you the very same question. What do you think needs to happen next in terms of the movement to secure the basic human rights for Roma?
We have still a long way to go to make our equal rights a reality. Still, almost 80% of our people in Europe live in poverty. We face segregation, racist violence, hate speech, and are discriminated against when we seek education, work, medical care, or place to live. What I fight for, maybe you remember last year I wrote a resolution in the European Parliament, and these resolutions change something, because in the resolution I mention that they must change some termini, like integration. We don't need integration, we want inclusion, equal participation. We need this. And the fight against anti-Gypsyism must be for the national states binding. That must be a priority, because when you don't, as national states, the government don't fight against anti-Gypsyism, what you want, how you want to implement inclusion strategies. When you don't work with your majority, that in the majority they will be sensitive with this topic. Well, then you have no success, and that shows in the last 10 years. The Commission makes recommendations. What calls recommendations? You can do, but you don't must do it.
Yeah.
And the result is you can do it or not. And that's, I think, that's not a kind of respect for us as European citizens, as Romani people. And that I in my resolution calls the fight against anti-Gypsyism must be a priority. We speak from inclusion, equal participation, no paternalistic approaches. We don't need paternalistic approaches, We need non-paternalistic approaches. We want to be included at eye level in the solution concepts in everything. We want to be equal partners at every level. And this resolution I brought in the EP part in the Parliament at 17 September, and this resolution calls for a law and was adopted with 80% of the members of the European Parliament. That calls the European Parliament calls the Commission to make a law. And that's my next step, what I want to do. That I fight for this, that we have a binding laws that oblige every member state and every region where Romani people live to proactively fight anti-Gypsyism in majority society, protect our people. That's very, very important when we take a look to East Europe. To protect our people and promote inclusion for our people so that they can pursue a life as equal citizens. And that we must do. In the past with recommendations, we change nothing.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, Romeo, the need for stronger enforcement of laws that would protect the rights of Roma and Travellers. And you're right, in an Irish context, we also use the term inclusion rather than integration.
Perfect.
And our national Traveller Roma inclusion strategy is just that. It's called an inclusion strategy, not an integration strategy, because they're very, very different concepts. And I suppose we have to have a little bit of hope, I think, looking forward in terms of the new European national action plans against racism. And that needs to be really strong and needs to have a strong focus on Roma and Travellers. And then, of course, the new EU framework strategies for the inclusion of Travellers and Roma. That too needs to be very strong in terms of its implementation. So I will come back in a moment for just some final concluding comments before we wrap up. But now I just want to show again another short video of some young Traveller and Roma children who are talking about pride in their community and hope and ambition for the future.
I'm proud to be Roma because I love our cultures and traditions.
I'm proud to be a traveller because I live in a traveller side with my family and I see them every day.
I like the community sense and how everyone helps each other. I like the fact that people have big personalities and how everyone is welcome.
Because I like my culture and I love that Travellers are all about family.
Because my family is around me and I feel safe, and my friends and cousins are around me as well.
And when I grow up, I want to be an SNA teacher.
I want to be a professional footballer.
When I grow up, I want to be a crime detective.
And I want to be a teacher when I grow up because I like small children and I like school.
When I grow up, I want to be a Manchester United player. You could see that I have a Man United jersey on, and I want to play for Man United as a world-class star.
Okay, so there you have a group of young Traveller and Roma children talking about having pride in their community and their hopes and their ambition for the future, which is really, really important to have a sense of ambition despite the odds being stacked against you in terms of racism and exclusion and so forth. So it's really important that we work with young Travellers and Roma and instill and reinforce that pride and that ambition. So just before we wrap up, I'm going to go back to both of you for some really short concluding remarks. And I'll start with you, Eileen. Is there anything that you think you haven't said that you'd like to say? And if so, now is your chance. A minute, please.
Watching that video make you feel emotional, because you're seeing young Traveller and Roma children wanting to be something when they grow up, and I hope with all my heart that these children will grow up to be what they want to be, that the opportunities will be there. And as you said, Martin, it's about having hope because of the great activists that came before us. You know, all the work that has been done, you know, we have to have hope. We have to have hope for our community that things can only get better, you know, because of the legislations, the policies, the ideas that people have. And again, I believe the political will needs to be there to change for a better future for Traveller and Roma people in Europe and in Ireland. So yeah, and I really hope that the young people in that video will keep those dreams and will meet their dreams some days. It's you know, it's like any other child. It doesn't matter what background you're from. You have a dream. You want to be something in your life, and you know, other people shouldn't stop you from being what you really want to be. So that's how I'll end it, Martin, and thanks so much to Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre for having me here today. And really, you know, that's what we're all doing it for, is for the young children within our community, and to see equal opportunities for those young children. And I hope to God that we can be all part of a better society for our younger children. Thank you.
Indeed, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Eileen. And then finally, Romeo, in a minute, any concluding remarks you'd like to make, please?
Okay. Let us be now decision maker. Don't let the guardian be the decision maker about our life. We want to be the decision maker about our life. We must be self-confident, and that I see by the little children. They are self-confident and emancipated. That's the thing what we need to change the situation and the equal situation. And we need binding characters for the integration strategies. We need not recommendations. We need a law that our people have an equal participation. Like in Romania now, 2 months ago, they implement a law against anti-Gypsyism. Who make anti-Gypsyist hate speeches go punished between 3 months and 10 years. And that's something that's very good for whole Europe, to make laws against anti-Gypsyism, and anti-Gypsyism must be punished. So, and we must find, we affected people from anti-Gypsyism, we must fight together. We must unite. We must find these things who unite us. But we have different opinions. That's completely okay. But we must find this point where we are completely unit. And therefore, we must go and we must fight together. Together, we are strong.
Very good, Romeo. Thank you very much. I certainly take your point around solidarity and alliance building with other communities and with other state institutions. I think that's really important. And you also
when I was in college, Martin, there were this one of our lecturers used to say, Anastasia Quigley, nothing about us without us. And what Romeo is saying there is reminds me of that quote, you know, nothing about us without us in all walks of life, and to be having that equality of opportunity. And I think that quote is very real for today's event. So.
Absolutely, and that's something that, you know, Traveller and Roma have been saying for many decades, in that we want to be the architects of our own future, not have other people dictate it to us. So I think that's a really salient point that has been made. So just before we wrap up with the Roma anthem, Jelm Jelm, I just want to thank Eileen, Flynn, for taking time out from your really very busy schedule to be with us here today to commemorate and celebrate 50 years since the first Roma National Congress in 1971 in London, and also to thank Romeo Franz for also taking time out from his extremely busy schedule to be with us here today to mark this really historic event. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to both of you, and I wish you the best of luck in your political careers and in life more generally. So we're going to wrap up now with Music Cantia, a group of Roma musicians based here in Dublin, with Jelm Jelm. Thank you very much, and the best of luck.
Yes,